Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. My name is James Nguyen. I'm the Special Projects Manager in the Community Development Department. We have our consultants team here. There's Brandon from RSG and Thomas Gonzalez from EPS. And we'll do a little fuller introduction shortly. So on the agenda today, the purpose of this meeting is to provide you guys with an overview of what we're calling the Comprehensive Community Development Fee Study. So it encompasses a couple of different types of fees that the city is looking to do as a result of new development coming into the city. Some of it is an update of existing fees, some of it's all a new fee altogether. And a lot of these fees were contemplated from our general plan and past efforts on that. So with that, I just want to give our consultant a chance to introduce themselves. They'll be taking over later in the presentation. So Brandon, I'll pass popcorn it to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Brandon Fender with RSG, helping the city with the inclusionary housing ordinance and commercial linkage fee components of the fee study. And Thomas?
Hey there, I'm Thomas Gonzalez, Vice President with EPS, and we're working on the development impact fee and community benefits program portion of the study.
I believe our sub-consultant, Yoonji, is here as well. Yoonji?
Thank you for to mention me. Yeah, I'm from Philippines. I'm Angelo from Long Beach office working on the transportation impact fee of the sub of the development fee program. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So on our agenda, we'll talk about the scope of the project, the methodology, next steps, and we'll end with questions and answers. Yeah, so let's start with the background. So what is a development fee program? So as community grows, development requires more services, new population, new services for infrastructure, affordable housing, new needs. A lot of needs will be required. Carson is anticipating quite a bit of growth, given that even though we are an infill community, we are expecting, quite a substantial increase in population over the next decade or two. And so as a result of that, we want to ensure that the city is able to fund the essential infrastructure and services needs to keep up with that with that growth. So the purpose of this study is to really align development contributions with infrastructure and housing needs, update our fees to match 2040 general plan and current growth patterns, ensure that it meets all legal compliance requirements under the Mitigation Fee Act and more, promote fiscal sustainability and smart community investment, provide clarity for developers, staff, and the public. And we are really looking to balance community priorities with economic feasibility. And so the scope of this the study is kind of broken down to 5 different types of study areas. So we have development impact fees. And just so some background, our impact fee program right now is an interim program. With the adoption of the Carson 2040 general plan, we have envisioned updating that interim program and making it a permanent program as part of the city's infrastructure needs. So the lead consultant with that is EPS, or Thomas is here. Also, along the same lines, the community benefits program. So that would be a new funding program contemplated under the general plan, and EPS is also the lead consultant there. Brandon at RSG is the lead on the inclusionary housing program and in lieu fees. Related to that housing needs, there's the commercial and industrial linkage fee that RSG is also taking a lead on. And what's not included here was Webb Municipal Finance. They're not here today, but they will be taking the lead on the city's community facilities district. And so this is really the first meeting of an overall effort to reach out to stakeholders and to let you guys know that we're starting this process. There'll be opportunities for questions and feedback throughout the process. The schedule is posted on the slide here. You can see that we've internally kicked off this effort earlier in the spring, and now we are in our public outreach phase. We will begin the stakeholder development engagement phase later, very shortly. Following that will be policy direction from council and adoption we're anticipating next spring. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Thomas at EPS.
Thanks, James. Glad to dive into a little more detail on these first two components of the overall scope, the development impact fees and community benefits study. So just going to give an introduction overview of what we'll be looking at there, and also try to break down what exactly development impact fees are and what a community benefits program is. So we'll start with the development impact fees, which development impact fees, or DIFs, are like a specific term within California law. And those fees are essentially paid by new development. And the purpose is to fund public infrastructure needed to serve new residents and workers who will be living in that in those new homes and businesses. And essentially, the fees can be used for a variety of capital improvement projects. They can also, which include things like, depending on the city, it could include parks, it could include roads, it could include sewers, it could include a variety of other things as well. It can also cover the remodel or improvement of facilities that will expand capacity. So any of those things that expand capacity, even if they're mixed with a remodel, those fees can be used for that. And then beyond that, it more broadly can be used for facilities and equipment needed to provide public services. That could even include things like vehicles or gear that are needed to expand the city's services. Sometimes those are like public safety, police and fire, but really a variety of things. But what they can't fund, if you go to the next bullet, they can't fund existing deficiencies in level of service. So if they're not designed to address needs of the existing residents, they're really intended to fund improvements that will serve those future new residents in new development. So they can't be used for operations and maintenance costs on an ongoing basis. They can't be used for personnel costs like salaries or benefits. And they are also distinct and different from user fees or permit fees. Those are limited to covering the administrative costs that the city has in carrying out specific services or regulatory functions like new project approvals, for example, with the permit fees. And just an overview of development impact fees in Carson. There is an interim program currently in place. Those fee amounts are listed on the city's website, and there are currently 7 different fee areas. They're listed here. As you can see, parks is one of them. There's general government facilities, traffic and transportation, and the funds collected to date total over $14 million. And so for new development that's going in currently, they were subject to those fees. And when we complete this study, we will update the fee program. Those categories may change a little bit based on the findings of our study. And the new fee rates will go into place once the study is completed and adopted by City Council. Essentially, what those fees will be under the latest state requirements within the Mitigation Fee Act. Those are charged on a per square foot basis for each different type of use. So residential, retail, office, etc., depending on the land use category, there will be maybe a different fee. But one of the latest updates is the requirement that residential also generally be charged on a per square foot basis. And so that will be incorporated into our study. And the study will determine a maximum fee amount that can be legally charged. And the city council at their discretion may choose to adopt a fee amount that is up to but not exceeding that amount. And sometimes city councils will choose to charge a fee less than the study determines as the maximum. How do we determine what that fee is? That's sort of what this slide shows. So the fee, we try to come up with a fee per new service person. So that's a formula related to the number of people living and working there. And sometimes that formula changes a little bit depending on commute patterns, et cetera. But to get that fee per person served, per service person, we take the cost of all the improvements needed to serve those new folks, and we divide it by the number of new folks that will be living and working there, and that's how we determine the fees. So that was broad overview of development impact fees, and now I will turn the attention to community benefits. Community benefits are a little different. This is really a form of what's called value capture. Essentially, it is a voluntary exchange between the city and a developer. So developers are not required to participate in the community benefits program, so it's different from the DIF program, the development impact fee program. Those fees are required on any new development that increases square footage. With the community benefits program, again, it's optional. So the city or the developer, if they choose, can provide specific benefits that are defined by the city. And those have yet to be determined. That's part of our study. We're going to be working with the city to determine what the community needs are and what the type of benefits that we want to ask for. And then if the developer provides those benefits, the city will allow them to deviate from the base zoning and land use rules. And this program was actually envisioned in the city's general plan update. So the 2040 general plan actually includes the following table that notes that certain land use classifications are eligible for a potential community benefits program. So you can see here the medium and high density residential, the various mixed use categories, as well as the flex district and industrial zoning. Those each have potential for participating in a community benefits program. There's a few other zones that won't be part of the program. They weren't included in the general plan, but we'll be working from this list to determine what might work for the city of Carson. I mentioned that this is a form of value capture. So it's very important with the community benefits program, in order to for the program to be successful and for developers to take advantage of it and provide those benefits that the city is interested in, there needs to be sufficient value in the zoning deviations. And so we'll be looking at that carefully within each of the zoning classifications to make sure that there is sufficient incentive to cover the cost of the benefit that's being asked for. And so we'll be doing a feasibility analysis in order to determine that. The community benefits programs really can vary significantly, and it's traditionally some cities have only done community benefits programs on a one-off basis. They are increasingly popular in strong markets, strong real estate markets, so a lot of coastal communities. A good example of a community benefits program is actually also the state density bonus, which is really focused on affordable housing. That's not the only type of community benefit that's out there. And Brandon's going to talk more about affordable housing after this. That is one type of community benefit program, though, where in exchange for providing a certain number of affordable units, a developer can increase the density of their residential project. But there's many other types as well. And the structure just varies anywhere from more formulaic, like the state density bonus, all the way to a negotiated system where there's individualized analysis for each project to determine the required amount of benefit and whether, it's just very, very project by project. The advantage of the formulaic oh, sorry, let me just wrap up that point. Last point there. The advantage of the formulaic point is that, or the formulaic style approach is that it's easier to administer and it's also more predictable for developers. And whereas the negotiated can be a little bit more involved and less predictable. So on the last point I want to make for both, this really kind of applies to both development impact fees as well as community benefits, and to some degree the programs that Brandon's going to be talking about. But it's important that as we go through this process and determine the appropriate fee levels and community benefit programs parameters, that we balance the different goals of the city, including encouraging development, providing the necessary public infrastructure and facilities, as well as considering the city's economy and fiscal health, impact on tax revenue, et cetera. So we're going to be working together as a team to make sure that we're doing that, and the feasibility analysis and other analysis and input from the city will be helping us do that along the way, as well as our outreach process, like our meeting today. So I think that's my last slide. Yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Brandon.
Thanks, Thomas. Again, Brandon Fender with RSG. I'll be talking about the two affordable housing programs, so inclusionary housing and then the commercial and industrial linkage fee. And for those of you that joined late, there were a couple folks that hopped on a few minutes after we started. This video is being recorded, so it will be, and the city will make it available on their website in case you want to go back to the beginning and review this from the start. So first, inclusionary housing. Let me talk broadly about affordable housing before I get into inclusionary. First, I want to address why these two policies are really important to affordable housing in Carson. First, these programs will help the city meet state mandates. It supports the city's compliance with things like the regional housing needs allocation, housing element law, and then affirmatively furthering fair housing. If you're not familiar with RHNA, or regional housing needs allocation, that's basically a set of numbers that I'll go through on the next slide that are developed by HCD, DOF, that's the state Housing and Community Development Department, and Department of Finance, and SCAG, Southern California Association of Governments. Those three entities work together to determine an appropriate regional housing need for each local government within SCAG's jurisdiction. And again, I'll go through those on the next slide. So Carson has a set of RHNA numbers, as they're called, that it is aiming to fulfill through development, or provide the means for fulfillment through new development within the current housing element cycle. And then that brings me to the housing element, which is part of the city's general plan. The city's general plan provides a high-level blueprint of how the city will grow and develop into the future. And the city's housing element, as a piece of that general plan, helps provide opportunities for housing development. And then affirmatively furthering fair housing, state law created new housing element requirements. That is assessment of fair housing practices, analyses of relationships between available sites and areas of high or low resources, and then concrete actions in the form of programs to affirmatively further fair housing. These policies will also support economic and housing stability. So one of the housing element goals, this is the city's priority, is to provide housing that furthers stability, affordability, equity, and opportunity for all Carson residents. These policies will also reduce displacement pressures. Again, this ties back to the housing element goals, and the housing element specifically discusses displacement of sensitive communities in Carson. And the development of additional affordable housing units will support mitigating the displacement pressures. These policies will also align with existing city policy. So the city's general plan that I've already mentioned significantly increased allowable maximum densities. The city's inclusionary housing policy will require a certain percentage of new housing units to be restricted to rental rates or sale prices that are affordable to lower income households. And I'll go through that in a few minutes here in more detail. And with the inclusionary housing ordinance, the city is aiming to examine the cost of providing on-site affordable inclusionary units and balance that with the financial feasibility of new residential development. And then the city's general plan includes a goal of creating a balanced community. And then finally, this program, like Thomas mentioned, like James mentioned, these programs are designed to create predictability for developers. So these policies will define and align with the city's goals and objectives, and hopefully create some predictability for development in the city. I mentioned a couple times the city's regional housing needs allocation, or RHNA obligations. This slide illustrates that obligation. These are the numbers that the city is expected to plan for during the current housing element cycle, which runs from 2021 to 2029. You can see that 37% of the city's obligation is for units designated for above moderate income households. Those are market rate units essentially. And then the remaining 63% of the city's obligation is divided between extremely low, very low, low, and moderate income units. And the inclusionary housing and commercial linkage fees, those programs are aimed at supporting this new development, specifically in those lower income categories. But I'll also add that the inclusionary housing ordinance and the commercial linkage fee are only two of the city's tools, essentially, in its affordable housing toolbox. So the city could also pursue other policies and has other projects in the works that contribute to these lower income categories. I'm going to go through inclusionary housing, and then I'll touch on commercial and industrial linkage fees. A couple slides for each, just background and how you'll experience these things, how they will show up in the city of Carson. So first, with the inclusionary housing policy, the city has identified, and this is not uncommon in California, that there's a gap between housing that is provided by the market rate housing, and what lower income households can afford. And the city's general plan noted this and significantly increased allowable maximum densities, and other policies and actions by the city will identify and reduce constraints such as lowering parking requirements. The inclusionary housing policy and the commercial industrial linkage fee are also expected to contribute towards addressing that gap. The inclusionary housing policy will require a defined percentage of new housing units that are built in the city to be set aside for affordable households that are lower income. And they'll be set aside and restricted to affordable households. So typically local governments will set a portion of new housing units to be affordable, or also known as the inclusionary units, at a rate of between 5 and 15% of total units. And there's some variability on that, but most of the inclusionary housing ordinances in California fall within that range. This type of policy also integrates affordable housing into new market rate residential development, which aligns again with the city's general plan. As part of an inclusionary housing ordinance, the city must also provide alternative means of fulfilling the requirement. So state law requires alternative means to fulfill the requirement. Commonly, this is in lieu fees, offsite production of units, land donation, acquisition and rehabilitation of existing units that would then have covenants and restrictions on them for affordability. And I'll talk a little bit more about those alternatives in a minute here. This slide talks specifically about in lieu fees as one of the alternative means of compliance. The next slide outlines kind of the other kind of common alternative means of compliance. So specifically with in lieu fees, these are, again, one of the most common alternative means to fulfilling the inclusionary requirements. In this scenario, rather than building inclusionary units within a market rate development, developers would pay a fee in lieu of building those units, hence the name. The fees are then used by the city, they're collected by the city, and accumulated in an affordable housing fund to develop affordable housing in the community. This is important because as the city collects those funds and accumulates them, those funds can be leveraged with other state and federal funding sources to produce more units than would otherwise be built as inclusionary units. For example, I mentioned 5 to 10%, 5 to 15% as common inclusionary requirements. If a new market rate development built 100 units, for example, you would end up with 5 to 15 units designated for low income households. If the city instead collected, I'm just going to throw a number out there, $5 million, and leveraged those fees that were collected with state and federal sources, they could potentially build 25 or 50 affordable units depending on their contribution to the feasibility gap. Developers may prefer paying in lieu fees versus building inclusionary units because the reporting requirements create an additional burden on administrative and operational burdens on a market rate project. So there's certain things that developers or property managers would have to do in addition to their normal operations to report and administratively take care of those inclusionary units. And then in lieu fees can be based on the feasibility gap or the surplus development yield or a number of other methodologies. And we'll be looking at all of those. The in lieu fee could be set at a rate equivalent to the affordability gap. And I keep mentioning the gap just for those of you that may not be familiar with that term. That's the difference between the cost to build the units and the value of the potential rent or sale price that those units would generate. Another approach is the surplus development yield approach, where we'll look at the feasibility of market rate development and try to understand what the maximum feasible fee would do to the feasibility or the yield. Other approaches can include the leverage approach, looking at how the city would leverage in lieu fees to create an equivalent number of units offsite, or comparable jurisdiction approach, where you would examine what similarly sized jurisdictions are using for their fees. And again, we'll be looking at all of these different approaches. This slide illustrates how inclusionary housing will be visible, essentially, in Carson. So first, we've mentioned the new affordable housing units that will be built. Those are the inclusionary units, also known as the on-site unit production requirement. So those will be mixed into new market rate developments. So a new market rate development will have some proportion of their units set aside for low-income families. This, again, meets general plan goals, the city's goals and policies of integrating affordability and affordable units into new developments, and promotes mixed income neighborhoods. If developers choose one of these alternative means of compliance, such as the in lieu fee, the inclusionary housing policy could be visible in the community in one of many different other ways. So in lieu fees, as I mentioned on the previous slide, would be pooled together by the city and leveraged with state and federal funds to build larger scale affordable housing development projects. Collecting in lieu fees and leveraging them with other sources is likely to generate, again, more affordable units than would otherwise be built with any other means of compliance. The offsite unit production is kind of similar concept, wherein the units would be developed at a designated community rather than mixed into existing or new market rate development. This is advantageous in that the city and the community could strategically locate those new affordable units with access to facilities, amenities, and services. And then this also would encourage partnerships with nonprofit developers, and likely would include leveraging those funding sources with state and federal dollars as well. Land donation is another common alternative means of compliance. In this option, developers would donate land in lieu of building the affordable units inside the mixed income project. This gives the city control over the locations of future affordable housing development sites, and the land would essentially become a funding source for future affordable housing development. And like the in-lieu fees and offsite production alternatives, this alternative would include leveraging local funds with state and federal sources. This option is less commonly exercised, but it gives developers an additional option for fulfillment of the inclusionary requirement. And then the last is acquisition and rehab of existing units, sometimes known as housing preservation. This is in this alternative, a developer would acquire an existing housing development that is not necessarily affordable or restricted to affordable rents, and rehabilitate those units and designate them for low-income households. This alternative may help the city eliminate blight if there's a building that's in poor condition, or eliminate existing substandard living conditions, depending on what property is selected. But regardless of the means of compliance, the city's inclusionary housing program is intended to provide access to new affordable housing in the city, tying back to the general plan and the city's objectives and policies there. So now commercial and industrial linkage fees. One moment. This program is similar to inclusionary housing in that new development is really driving what this program is doing. Rather than an inclusionary requirement where you're building units on site. However, the commercial and industrial linkage fee it links the new commercial and industrial developments to a demand for new affordable housing. So the underlying concept is that new industrial and commercial development generates demand for housing in general, and a portion of those jobs associated with new development would generate demand for affordable housing in the community. And because the market would not otherwise provide the affordable housing in the community, the city's policy is intended to help support that. So as new commercial and industrial development occurs, developers contribute linkage fees, as they're known, and then the city, again, would accumulate these funds in an affordable housing fund to fund affordable housing projects and programs in the community. And again, these funds could be leveraged with state and federal sources. This is kind of how it would be visible in the community. So those linkage fees would turn up in, oops, sorry, skipped a slide here. So in detail, getting into the commercial and industrial linkage fee background here. As new commercial development and industrial development occurs, there's demand for new housing. The new commercial and industrial development and the business operations that occupy those new development will generate demand for new jobs. And that job creation will span different income levels. The workforce expansion impacts local housing needs, and the economic growth that results from the new development increases housing pressures. The new employees of those commercial and industrial developments may be eligible for affordable housing. So creating this fee supports those essential workers and who would otherwise need to live far from where the jobs are located, potentially. The one-time fee would be charged at the building permit stage or pre-development stage, and it would be based on the building square footage, typically. And because this fee is based on square footage, it scales with development size, and then setting the fee would be helpful to developers in that it creates a predictable cost that can be planned for. And then again, as I mentioned, the city would utilize those housing funds to build new affordable housing in the community and or preserve existing units with covenants that restrict the affordability of those units. And here's how the commercial and industrial linkage fee would be visible within the community through one of a number of different options here. After the city collects those linkage fees, They could be allocated to affordable housing programs, affordable rental housing, affordable home ownership programs, homeless housing initiatives are another option. Just a number of different options that the city could allocate those funds towards. Next steps in terms of this project, this is really the first public discussion that we're having on this comprehensive fee study. So there's several different project milestones up ahead. RSG, EPS, and Webb are working on the financial feasibility analyses for not just the inclusionary and linkage fee, but also the DIF and the community benefits. We'll be coordinating with city staff to draft policy recommendations. We will present findings to city commissions and stakeholders. There will be a second virtual town hall meeting. It's not scheduled yet, but it's likely to occur in October. We will refine our recommendations based on feedback obtained at this meeting through a virtual survey from the city commissions and stakeholders in the second virtual town hall meeting. And then a final report will be prepared for each of these fees and with implementation strategies for the city council to consider at some point in 2026. First half of 2026 is kind of the timeline. The final slide here, we have a QR code and a SurveyMonkey link. This takes you to a very short survey that we encourage everybody to provide feedback and input on. You can provide input on policy direction. There's also a open-ended question at the end where you can provide input on your perspective on housing or development impact fees or any of these fee considerations that we've discussed tonight. And then in addition to collecting the feedback through this SurveyMonkey link, which we will have active throughout this public outreach process, throughout the next virtual town hall meeting, throughout all the different stakeholder touch points. We're also going to take questions and comments here or feedback from anybody that would like to share it. I think with that, James's contact is here on the slide if you want to reach out to James directly. Otherwise, the survey is an excellent way to provide your feedback and input on this process. I see Rob. Yes, go ahead.
Can I ask how long the survey will be open to? And is it being broadcast to the general public, or how are you soliciting responses?
So this is the first real advertisement of this survey link here and the QR code. It will be active throughout this process and will continue to collect information and responses through the second virtual town hall meeting, which is likely to occur in October. And then after that as well. So we'll continue to collect responses after that. And then James, if you want to provide any other context as to where you'll collect survey responses.
Yeah, we'll probably do some in-person outreach and have hard copies or at least the QR code available at some of these public events that the city hosts or participate in. So those are other avenues with the same surveys just to get a broader audience. And then obviously we want to we'll probably put this presentation on the city's website, create a web page for this effort to kind of communicate this more broadly to everybody.
Thank you.
Question.
I see a hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the presentation. Thanks, James, for putting this out. This is Trini Jimenez with the Watson Land Company. A couple of things. One is I just want to introduce ourselves and our company to your consultants, James. And I know you mentioned in the presentation here, your folks did, that there's going to be some stakeholder outreach. And as one of the largest industrial stakeholders in the community, just want to offer our expertise to your consultants. And James has my contact information. If there's any questions or you want specific stakeholder input throughout this process, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I'd be more than happy to connect you to the appropriate folks here at Watson Land Company to work with you and give you some appropriate feedback. So that's number one. I know, James, you mentioned that the presentation would be on the city website. Is that the video of the Zoom itself, or just the PowerPoint presentation? If you could just email me the PowerPoint presentation, that'd be really helpful to me.
Yeah, that's not a problem. We'll send it out to the participants of
Great.
this meeting.
Great, thank you.
Feel free to throw your hand up or just unmute yourself if you have any questions or comments here.
Hello. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'm Brandon Fields.
Yep, go ahead.
I'm a resident of the city of Carson, and like I said, I was listening to your presentation. One of my things, I hear you about the fees and, capitalizing versus new companies and stuff for improvements. But how does it actually help the residents who actually been there for long periods of time? Because I said, I know it said it cannot go to it can only go to new projects, but nothing that's prior or anything else like that. But you have certain parts of Carson that is underdeveloped and can't be developed anymore, basically, because it's, full of homes. Everything's it hit its plateau, really. And like I said, if we can't have nothing new built over there, how's it actually helping the Carson residents who've been there generations?
Do you want to handle that question, James?
Sure, I can start and I'll pass it along to you, Brandon, or Thomas, whoever wants to add on to it. So I guess our fee program is intended to capture our city's infrastructure needs. So the types of projects that would come out of this is one is affordable housing projects. Two is like new street lights because there's going to be more traffic. New parks because there's going to be demand for more park space. And so when we think about the large population that will eventually come to Carson as more and more sites get redeveloped, there will be more needs for infrastructures and that type of work. And so existing residents are benefit from this program because because these new residents, they're going to bring traffic, but at the same time, they're going to we're collecting revenues to address those traffic impacts. These new residents are going to bring, more demand to park needs. They're going to crowd up the parks a little bit, but we have a funding mechanism to expand and enhance our park facilities. So in that regard, it's a way to allow the city to grow and make sure that we are, not, falling behind being overburdened by the growth. So, Brandon?
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is that I don't know, halfway through the slide deck, I know we presented a lot of information, but specifically to your point, how does it, affect Carson residents today? The city is recognized that in the housing element, they've recognized that displacement of sensitive communities in Carson is an important thing to consider. The inclusionary housing ordinance and the commercial and industrial linkage fees are intended to build new affordable units, which should alleviate some of that pressure on those sensitive communities and may eliminate some of that displacement. But like I said, this is one of the city's many different policies, programs, tools, if you will, that they can use to help the existing residents, I think, from that perspective.
Yeah, just to add a little bit more on the development impact fees specifically, like James was saying, by collecting those, it sort of makes sure that the city's other resources and other funding sources can be used for projects that benefit the current residents, because the fee provides some upfront funding to address the needs of the new residents. That sort of makes sure that the other funding sources are then available for existing resident needs. And then on the community benefit side, that program is less restricted and actually is a great chance for the city to ask for things that that are important to existing residents, because under the community benefits program, developers are going to get some sort of incentive or bonus, and therefore we can ask them to provide funding for the needs of the current community.
And then let me add one more thing on the end here to promote this survey one more time. The survey has one question that asks you, the survey taker, to identify different policies or programs, priorities, if you will, that are important to you in the community. So there's several different things that we think these fees could apply to and could help the city improve on. But there's also that open-ended question at the end where you can provide feedback that that may not already be answered within the survey question. So I'd encourage you, you to take that, you to pass that around to friends and family as well, to really, that's the best way that we're going to get feedback on, what priorities the communities really has or would like the city to focus on.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm a District 3 resident. That's where I'm at. I don't know if you're really familiar with that area yet, but that's the part of Carson that has been neglected for years. And so under that neglect, we say, okay, we go for these fees and stuff like that. Granted, but the new developments is going to go into District 1 or to District 2. So they the ones actually going to benefit, because on our end, there's nothing that they can actually redevelop. So it's like, you may get the money, but how's it actually going to benefit and improve that general area? That's where Carson hasn't really been focusing 100% on. We want to look like the other part of Carson, but we like the stepchild of the Carson. So we agree to it. Okay, granted, we get these fees, get the money, get the stuff, but are we going to actually benefit from it? Is it new development coming over there? Probably not. But you say fixing up a park. Okay, there's one park there. You can't put another park in that general area because there's no more land for it. You have already complexes for manufacturing, all these other different things. So it's like, are we actually going to reap some type of benefit from it?
I can answer that question a little bit, just generally. So District 3 is on the east side of Carson, and so one project we have in the pipeline. So our community benefits program is kind of citywide. The intention is to adopt a citywide community benefits program, but currently we don't have one in place. That's what Thomas and EPS is working on. But even though we don't have one in place, we do make a development agreements with certain developers. And for the specific District 3, we have a development agreement with a developer on Perry Street that is proposing residential units. And as a result of that development agreement, there is a community benefits provision that provides $250,000 towards improving the storefront on East Carson Street, specifically between Harborview and Santa Fe. And so the businesses, the 2 dozen businesses that are along that corridor are going to experience a benefit from a improved look on their storefront. And the intention is to try to make that the look there kind of mimic the look on the west side, so that East Carson community is not left out from the rest of the city. So that's one example of how community benefits can be applied through a development agreement. But what Thomas and EPS is working on is a citywide community benefit program that would be a lot more comprehensive and would consider all of that. So just one example. I don't count out on District 3 not getting any new parks. There may be something in the works. So we're looking to fund projects. So that's what we do.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Brandon. Any other questions there? I have one in the chat, Danielle. Would the fees apply to properties that are redeveloped? James, do you want to address that first, or?
Yeah, I mean, generally, so I can talk about our interim development impact fees and how that works. I don't know how the new fees will work yet because we have yet to draft that. But our interim development impact fees, if you completely demolish a building and you rebuild it, then that would be subject to a development impact fee. So generally, the answer is yes.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And one question I was listening to Brandon's question, the development impact fees, they can be applied anywhere in the city, right? So it doesn't have to be for a project in that district for it to apply to that district. It could be applied across the city, theoretically. Is that correct?
Yes, I'll let Thomas answer.
Okay.
Yeah, the intention currently is not to create a district-based fee, so it would be a citywide fee. So any development anywhere in the city would pay into the fee fund for each of the distinct fees, and that it's not earmarked for any particular location or project. It could be used for any eligible project, as long as it's either one of the projects listed in the study or a very similar project that has been identified by the city subsequently in the years following the
Got it.
study.
So for the example of District 3, even though it's built out and it might not experience it, there are other parts of the city that would, and theoretically funds could go to improvements in District 3. It wouldn't preclude it.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you. Helpful to know. Appreciate the presentation today.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah.
And thanks for offering to serve as a contact in the chat as well. All right. James, I'm going to leave it up to you to determine how long we should just stare at each other here.
Any last questions? Anyone? I guess before that, I'll make a quick announcement. The outreach list here, we use primarily our zoning code outreach list, people who signed up who are interested, and some of our economic development strategic plan summit attendees. So obviously we want to be as expansive as possible. But on that zoning code update list, there is going to be a follow-up zoning code update meeting. So I'm making this announcement on behalf of our new planning manager, Makina Alexander. That meeting is going to take place on August 18th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the community center in Carson at Carson Dominguez Hall. So if you guys are interested in that effort, that's the date, August 18th, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Carson Dominguez Hall. And if you were on this email or you got an email from me, you'll probably get an email from planning regarding that event.
Appreciate the flag. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like we may be able to wrap this up quite early.
I got a question. How can we get more community engagement more than anything? Because that's one of the biggest things that we have. The community seems like they never know what's going on. So we want to, try to reach out. You got to remember, Carson is a senior city, and technology is not one of their biggest suits. And that's one of the things I've been advocating on. People say, I want to know about different things, but I don't know. They don't use the computers. They don't, they don't know how to check the email. They gotta wait till the grandchildren, try to help out. But how can we actually get more engagement from the actual people who live in Carson? Is it something that we can put in the Carsonian paper, or put them on Facebook or some other forms of way so people engage more?
Yeah, we can definitely do that as part of this process. So we'll take a closer look at how we engage this effort. In terms of in-person events, we've actually have been doing that. Sorry, for this effort, we're going to start doing that. We have the community night out event, that's I think next week. And so we have staff here in our community development department that attends these events to do general outreach on the zoning code update and on brownfields and brownfield redevelopment. So we can tag this on as one of those outreach items. And so just to give you some background on our outreach for brownfields, which is under my purview, we do go out to events like the Filipino Independence Day, Samoa, Juneteenth. We try to hit them all the parks events. We went on the campus on Earth Day to Cal State Dominguez Hill. So we do try to be expansive and extensive on that. And as part of this effort, we can probably have the same staff just share the same information since they will be at those events anyways.
Okay. Yeah, that was my only concern. Like I said, I'm usually the main person who comes to a lot of the different events, or come to different little things that with these emails, but I never get other residents come, and I'm like trying to find out, and I start asking questions, like we know nothing about it. So that's why I'm asking that question, to get more engagement from the actual residents of Carson.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Any last questions? I think we're there. People are dropping off. All right. I think we can end this session. If you have questions, feel free to email me. The survey's on the screen, but email me if you want more information, and I can connect with our team here and get back to you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.